Our next step, we need to determine whether or not we need to trim the cases to length. Now, we either fired the brass and used a net collet die, or we full-sized it, which we know is going to fit the chamber. Now that we know it's going to fit, we need to find out whether that's going to be too long or not. Now, this little guy here is a Lee. It's very caliber specific. This is for 270, and it will fit down the neck, and it bottoms out in the primer hole, and with this little pilot right here. And what it does is, if it's too long, this will actually touch, and you'll grind off copper that or brass that way. And when you turn it around like that, when it quits grinding, you know your size to within specification to the minimum specification. Now, this little guy is an L.E. Wilson headspace gauge to check your overall case. And the way it works, this can be real fast. You can put your case in there, and it has a minimum and kind of a maximum tolerance. This is a little long, but let's go ahead and trim that. And the way we would do that is we'll put our trimmer in there, and we just turn it. Until we're not cutting any more brass. Now when we put it back in the gauge, we are perfect. What we'll do then is we don't have to trim each piece to make sure it's within tolerance. But if it does, we'll make our trimming. One last thing that we will do before we try to seat our bullets and polish these things, fill them full of powder and what all, is we will run a reamer around here, which looks like this. It looks like a pointy bullet on one side and an inverse bullet on that side. And what we do is we run it. That takes the burr off the outside. That takes the burr off the inside. Do the same thing with the one we trimmed. And that's all there is to getting it to the proper length. Another option you have is you can take a cordless drill, 1/2 inch, and put the trimmer in it and do it a lot faster. And it will bottom out and stop cutting when it's of the proper depth. I'm going to do all these like this. And then I'm going to come back and ream them all to make sure that I'm deburred. Now I have my decapped, trimmed, and deburred cases. I have a tumbler. Now this, I'll point out to you, if you'll notice, is nickel plated, and we normally don't have to clean those really, but I'm going to put them in there anyway because I've got a few of them in the little case here, in the little rack. And what we'll do is I've got media, the proper amount of media in the bowl, and what I'm just going to do is pick these guys up and add them to the bowl. And then I'll take this and I'll actually plug it in the wall over here on the ground, because this particular tumbler will kind of walk on me a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and keep it from falling off the bench. I'm going to tumble it on the ground. The top just fits right on, and we have a little screw to hold to secure it into place, and we're ready to turn her on. And we'll let her clean and roll and tumble until we think that they're good and clean. And that's all there is to it. Then we'll take this guy, it's got perforated top, we'll drain this back into a bag, which I keep in here so I keep the new from the used. and then I'll shake these things out and we'll show you how to finish up in a minute. Tumbler's working. If I can get out enough of the shadow, you might be able to see some grass roll right over there. See it's walking a little bit, but we just let her run till they're clean. Now we're going to take this top off, and we'll remove a brass after I put on a pair of gloves. And we'll probably have a little bit of green stuff left in it, and I'll show you how to check to make sure the primer holes are nice and clean, and then we're ready to cap the case, and we're done. Now, one of the last things we need to do before we prime the case is I've got the trimmer, and you see the flash hole has got, on some of these, has got just a little bit of media in there. So all we need to do is we use it to clear the flash hole. Now this case is ready to be primed and filled with powder. Now you see how clean that primer pocket is? It's because we tumbled it that way. Now before somebody out there on the internet looks at this and says, Mr. 149, I tumble my bullets after I get done, after I finish handling, so I don't have to wear no latex gloves. Now, I'm not going to recommend that process, because when you stop and think about it, do you want your bullets flopping around in that tumbler? I know they're not necessarily going real hard, but do you want your bullets flopping around in or banging on your primers? Messing with your overall case length, perhaps? Changing your precision made rifle cartridge? I don't. The last thing we do is we take a primer tool like this one, set up with a proper shell holder, and we prime our cases. I don't know if it's really a fair thing to say, but you know, really when it gets down to it, nice shiny clean brass is kind of almost beautiful. And here we have prime, clean, trim, deburred, inspected, and ready to go case. All we need now is to load our powder charge, seat our bullets, and there we'll have a finished product. Now the last little tool I'm going to show you is made by RCBS. This thing is called a Case Master. It is a gauging tool, and what it's used for is it's used for checking out cases. It's a little jig basically to check out cases in a few different dimensions. What it can do is it can check your case length, bullet run out, check your neck thickness with it. You can put it in that little cradle, and by setting that little dial plunger gauge there, you can actually spin the case and see how centered the neck really is in the case. It's pretty slick for a lot of little minor tedious little details on your cases. And like I say, mine are form fired in my particular bolt action. These dimensions are not super important to me, but if they are, I certainly have a tool here available to do that with. And with that, I'm going to close this video, and I'll see you next time.